Marianne, you want to take the roll, please?
Mr. Dixon?
Here.
Here.
Dr. King just
here.
came in.
Here.
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 Here. All right, we have a quorum. Thank you. First up is discussion information item, superintendent's report. Okay. Kevin?
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to formally introduce, I think he was introduced at the last meeting, but it's official, he's in place now, as well as this being my first official board meeting, but Tim McGinnis is our interim CFO. So I wanted to introduce Tim. The next thing that is going to be coming around, just for informational purposes, is a handout for the board, just for their records, so they're familiar with organizational structure. It will look very similar to previous structures. On one side is the full diagram from the community all the way through to the students. And then on the reverse side, just a little more specifics will give you an idea of how the main administrators and responsibilities from the board through the superintendent, through the principal and the interim CFO, what responsibilities they'll be handling. And that's on the reverse side. Facility supervisor will report to the superintendent, and on days when Tim is present, he'll also work with me, since that is a purchase service and a contracted service. So we'll both work with Dennis. And the only thing that else is shared is the special ed LADC, that's Gail Bracken, and that will be shared between Pam and I. I will work with Gail on special ed placements and things related to special ed that will result in budget implications, and Pam will work with Gail on building level, RTI and special ed and professional development at the building level. So she will kind of sit in two assignment boxes in regards to that. And just real quick, this is an organizational structure that I established back when I was a principal, so that's something that I went through with Pam a little bit, and then it put some categories and some assignments and responsibilities, but I call them the 6 A's of a high school. Academics, activities or athletics, attitude, which is basically student management, administration, accountability, and appearance. So what you see on the bottom of the right side of that box is kind of the building level administrator, who will be assigned to that, and then Pam overseeing all that through the administration and the accountability piece. So I just wanted to provide that for you, so you understand how I'm setting up the organizational structure leadership-wise.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions?
All right.
Number 2 is a Board of Education retreat. The 4 of us attended professional development training from the IASB, Laura, John, Dan, and Mr. Welch. And we had a great experience. They covered a lot of topics. Some of it was broader, some of it was more detailed. But at different times throughout the meeting, we kind of were caught looking at each other saying, you know, what's our direction with that, or how do we want to handle that? I think with a new superintendent, 4 new board members, I'd like to organize something for late August or early September, once school is officially kicked off, and Tim and I have been in place for 60 days, a Saturday afternoon workshop or retreat where the Board of Education and the superintendent can be in a room, and we can discuss goals for the district, goals for the superintendent going forward, communication plans, functions of advisory committees for the principal, for the superintendent, kind of just some business things that will help us operate more efficiently and more effectively moving forward, so that meetings are kept to a reasonable length, communications improved, and most importantly, we're getting stuff back to the building administration so that they can run school effectively, and we can continue to achieve great things here. So is there anybody that would be opposed to doing any type of workshop or retreat sometime in the next 60 days or so?
Don't we have to do it under the guides of, like the IASB, or it'd have to be subject to the Open Meetings Act?
Yeah, we would have to probably do it in public if we did it just with our 7 and myself. We also can talk about bringing in an outside source to lead it.
Which are you proposing, do you know?
I would be open to either.
Okay.
I would leave that to Mr. Sinde to talk with the board.
Okay.
But I think most importantly, I think that just the 7 of us getting together and talking about some norms of how these committees are going to work. Maybe have a session where Tim could come in and address on how we want him to report out financials, so that we can get updates on that better. If we front load the work in the first 60 days of my tenure, I think we'll be more effective moving forward. Some people have also said that they have used a Hazard, Young, and Atia or different search firms. So whatever direction Matt and the board gives me, I will look into those resources going forward from that.
All right, so let's give to Mary Ann, all board members, and Kevin and Tim and Pam, if you want, as just an optional, your availability for Saturday starting from the 20th and going all the way through to, we will not do Labor Day weekend, but take it all the way through till the midpoint of September. And we'll see what days are available.
20th of July,
August? No, 20th of August. And then moving through that to mid-September.
Are we going to have another committee of the whole for finance?
Yeah, we will. We are going to have that, and we'll talk about that when we talk about budget.
The final thing on my report is the advisory committee meetings. And I know Matt is scheduling another committee of the whole that will specifically focus on finance and the budget. And he's going to address that a little later. But I think before we try to call any additional meetings in just regards to all committees as a whole, we should hold off to give me enough time. I'd like to, through the next 2 weeks of July and the first 2 weeks of August, working around your vacation schedules, I think it's important that I get with each committee at least for an hour or two to say, where are we, what have you been working on, and what are our priorities going forward for this school year. You know, we've had some things from life safety issues to possible rental agreements that I need to meet with the facilities committee on. We have some outstanding policies that we need to get wrapped up here real quick. I'm already meeting with the finance committee and Mr. McGinnis next week to start breaking down the budget and to talk about financial reporting going forward for the board. So I think it's important that within the next 2 to 4 weeks, I'll be reaching out to each committee and trying to establish an advisory committee meeting so we can find out where we are and what we need to work on for this school year and what needs to be a priority.
Are you talking about the superintendent advisory groups?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we don't have committees.
Right, these are superintendent advisory committees. Advisory committees is the key word. And this would be separate from the finance committee of the whole meeting, which we are going to do for the entire board to review the budget prior to putting the budget on.
And I'd like to say for other board members, I'd like to know if these other advisory groups are meeting, because I have no knowledge that these groups have met or having conversations. I would just like to know conversations are happening.
Well, as we're saying right now, is we have not met yet because we have a new superintendent starting. And as Kevin said, that he wants to, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, be able to get that together to get the committees to start them working and moving ahead with it. The other key thing is that we're not hiding anything, as we talked about before with the committees, that these committees will report back what's going on. So that's the purpose of it. And I just want to remind you that these are superintendent has asked these as advisory committees to him. But they will report back to the board, every board meeting, what has happened and what's coming on here. They cannot make any decisions without the full board voting on it.
Yeah, we discussed this before in quite length, but Matt, do you think that maybe that could be on the docket for our meeting of the whole or retreat? Talk about the communication.
Yeah, we can do that.
I had some general topics written down, and one of them I think that's important to come out of that retreat is a formal reporting system for all these advisory committees, so the rest of the board is updated prior to the committee of the whole meeting.
Right.
Whether it's a one-page summary that someone sends out every time we meet so that people are aware we met and what we discussed, and that the additional board members could then ask questions prior to committee of the whole. That's why I think it's important that we do schedule a retreat sooner than later so that we can establish some norms of how we want to operate and function as a group to be effective, and then to make sure we're over-communicating and not under-communicating what we're discussing and what we're trying to accomplish.
To ourselves and to the community.
Correct.
All right, any other thing, Kevin?
That is it for me. So I will be emailing individual board members over the next week or so to start aligning up committee meetings.
All right, principal's report, Pam?
Should have that been changed. The heading.
The first topic of my report are new residency forms and procedures. So I'm sending around a summary. It goes on the front and the back of the page. Everything you see here was done with the advice of our district attorney, Mrs. Jackie Wentz, who's been working with us on the residency hearing cases. There were many that came before the board during this school year, and in doing so, we thought it was wise before we moved into the summer residency process, when families come in and prove residency and pay fees for the next year, that we made sure our forms were in order and clarified a few things and came up with some revised processes. So what I've identified here is we had originally combined some aspects of the proof of residency with the enrollment form and personal data. So those have been separated onto two different forms, and they'll go through two processes. So first thing, you have to verify your residence. It now states a little bit more clearly at a different part of the form that completing the form does not establish your residency, and that the district may investigate that status, and that could include a home visit or additional requirement of additional documentation. Then on the verification of residency form, it asks a person to affirm or deny the statement if we or I reside in a residence with another individual who owns or rents the residence. And if you answer yes, then you'll be given one of two affidavit forms. We used to have one where it combined homeowners with leaseholders, and now they're separated out into two separate affidavit forms. And one of the process changes that you'll see on the back is now those people are required to come in with the person enrolling the child and sign those forms in front of us, rather than having just some type of notarized document given to us in the absence of that person. So that was something many other districts are doing, and that our attorney strongly advised us to do. So the forms have been changed and the process has been changed. And then you can see that the other piece of that on the affidavit forms, it does clearly outline, and now in bold type. It was always there, but it's highlighted more for the people that are filling out, the homeowners or the leaseholders, what those criminal penalties are if they're going to fill that out in a fraudulent manner. So that was something that we had talked about making a little bit clearer, and that we can have a conversation with those people. The student data and registration form then asks a simplified question about students receiving special education or English language learner supports in the past, because we ran into a few situations this year where parents did not disclose that at the beginning, and we then later found out, and it would have been helpful to best serve that child and be able to provide supports to that family in a more timely manner. So the question is a little bit more direct, and then there's a statement there which I've put on the sheet for you so you can understand what we're trying to inform parents of how that can be harmful to the child if they don't share the information. We are also more clearly outlining what additional documentation we're required to gather if you're a step parent and a guardian who's registering a child, and you can see that on the back. So those procedures, again, we confirmed with the attorney on those, and we're set to go. And we did discuss those when we were looking at those individual cases of residency that had gone to hearings and come before the board, and we were looking a little bit at how we could make our process a little bit tighter for this year. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I think this is good. I think it really helps. It avoids the, well, I didn't know, to now saying, yeah, you did know, you signed this paper, and it's, you know, it's not, we're not hiding it or doing any legal mumbo jumbo with it. And I also do like the fact about the, I do agree with you that if we need to have a student that has to have special education, has special education needs, they should be identified to help that student prepare and start his career here to be fruitful, so.
How does the landlord come in if someone's renting? How's the landlord working?
The leaseholder comes in and then is required to bring, we also changed the forms that are getting mailed home to families with their, this comes on a card, a postcard, and you probably as a parent, you know, you receive one that tells you the date of your, that you're to register your child and come and prove residency. So there's a new statement here that says that any parent intending to provide an affidavit must bring the homeowner or leaseholder with them to the registration appointment. That person is required to bring their ID and proof of ownership or residency. And then we have a phone number they can call if they're unclear about really who has to come and what to bring. And that again was on the advice of the attorney, so that they didn't just show up, but they also have to prove that they're renting that property, and then give us, obviously, we'd have to see, you know, that lease, and it should have the name of that owner of the property or who they're renting from. Does that answer your question, Mr.
I understand that we're going to have the family member who says the student is living under our house, and therefore they're eligible for school. But what about the landlord who has, you know, 100 apartments in town, in any one of the towns? Is that particular person required to come in?
No.
She's not requiring a landlord, they'd be the lessor. She said the lessee.
Yeah.
So if I say I'm living with you, you have to come in.
Yeah.
If somebody else owns the building, and I'm saying you're the lessee, and I say I live with you, you have to come in, not the person who owns the building you're leasing from.
Right. And then, again, if there are any questions, if that lease doesn't seem like it is legitimate or whatever, I mean, there are ways to investigate that, but that is what the attorney said, is that the leaseholder is required to come in to attest and to fill out the affidavit that you are living with them.
Because their name is not on the lease.
They don't,
The parent or
the
student.
parent
Parents,
doesn't,
yeah,
right,
parents.
exactly.
Okay.
And it should be a deterrent, since most leases don't allow two families to live in it. And it's also against the law in some of the villages too, isn't it? So we're hoping that
And the rest of the residency forms ask how long the person is intended to stay there. There are all kinds of requirements on how you can ask that, and if families are doubling up because it's homelessness, and then other laws go into effect. So all those questions are asked, and pretty standard from school to school, because you're given dictates because of the McKinney-Vento Act as far as how you're supposed to ask questions to get the correct answer from people. So does that make sense?
All right. Pam, you have something else?
Yes. I'm going to demonstrate and show you a quick sample of the website that's not.
Tim McGinnis might be blocking me out.
Yeah, you'll be able to see it in a moment. There we go. I have the template for the new website. In order to improve communications, one of the goals, I'm trying to work on this and not block people. So one of the goals of the district was to, this year was to, oops, I opened something else up, so let me get that down there. Was to get a new website that was affordable. So what you see here is our template with the rotating. It's going to have the rotating pictures at the top. This is not live yet. What we're doing is we're building the template. Actually, the color and the pictures were just added today. It will have a message from me on the front. Over here, we'll be able to put news and announcements, anything that we want people to be aware of. We will build our school calendar, will be merged into this, so that every day it will pull up automatically the day's events. Right here that you can't see, it has a link to, it says full calendar, where you can link to and then see the entire calendar. We're really pleased because we now have a dual navigation system. So this is actually the website company when we bought this template, didn't have this. We then built a table in the front to have a dual system, and then they said that's a great idea, and we'll put one in. So there'll be multiple ways that people can find things. The teacher who's really been working on this, now the new department chair for library and technology services, Ms. Alicia Duval, she was doing this as part of her administrative Type 75 project. She researched many high schools and mapped out their navigation bars, and what we're really thrilled about is they have flyouts that operate like normal school websites. Yay! Look at us!
Hooray.
Look at that. So we will fly out with the different departments. It's a little hard for you guys to see, but each department will have a standard, and so I'm going to see if this will load. I have a sample here of a standard page which will have the department chair, their mission statement, some goals they might be working on this year, and have all of their people in the department, and at the bottom it'll have news announcements, links, and document library. So each one will be set up in a similar manner. The other thing that we'll have on it is we have links like this right now would link to Art Ostro's athletic website. Media, we can put live media, so we'll have our BTV and it'll be able to stream the media live, so we didn't lose that. Board of Education will have a page. And the way we organize these navigation is that we looked at some schools do things alphabetically, others do it by most common use. And so that's the way we went, but anything here can be changed. So we're really pleased with it. It will have a dual navigation system so that lots of things you can get at two ways. So the student handbook will be under the students, the parents. For the community, we'll list all those kinds of community links that we think will be helpful. So we're in the process right now of, if this is through school CMS and website lingo is content management system, where it's really easy for people to be able to load things in. However, what's difficult for us is because of the way our other website was built, you can't migrate things over. We're rebuilding basically a lot of this from scratch. But every department chair will be able to manage their own site, put up pictures, update things. So we're pretty pleased with how it's coming out. I don't have summer curriculum money to give anybody to work on this, so it's really at this point kind of on hold till the fall when people come back and they can get working on it. I have a number of staff people who are going to be helping out with this.
We have an expected launch date, Pam?
We're thinking it'll probably take us September to get, you know, the majority of what we need up so it's functional. And as soon as we can make it live, we will, and then just continue to update it.
So October would be the
yeah,
latest?
we're hoping for by the beginning of October with no problem.
Is there any possibility of moving it up in advent of the school start?
I just don't have anybody in my to rebuild.
So you'd
content.
have to get
for instance,
more
yeah,
resources.
It's you know, I only had 10 hours for my Alicia, who's also the webmaster for the current website. And she needs that to update our current website with things. I didn't have the extra summer curriculum money to give somebody to do it. So it's very time intensive. It took us about a half a year to migrate content at my former school when we went to a new website. And I had a person that had 2 release periods to do it each day. He was a webmaster, so.
Pam, is there a search box on the site?
You know what? That is a great question. There is a. Let's look at the top. Yeah, it looks like there is one here.
But if it doesn't say search,
I don't know if it is. You know, it's hard for me. No, it doesn't say search. Let's see if
It does when you don't click in it.
Does it when I?
It's hard to
It does
see,
say
but it
search.
says
It does say
Okay.
search. Yeah. So it does. There is a search, and like for instance, right now with the contact us, our staff directory here has been updated where she's already taken off teachers who've retired, and she hasn't added in, but she did work on this as much as she could, you know, before the year. And this will eventually have links to the teachers' individual pages. That's the other thing. We have a lot of teachers who have websites and pages, and some of them have to be put into this format. Or their format has to be changed. They're being hosted on an outside site that once we are done with it, they'll no longer be hosted there. So we just have to make sure we've migrated everything we need before we make the other one defunct.
Now my question too is, who was as we're developing this new website, who's going to be the security master or?
That would be Alicia
Okay.
and I. We're kind of the top administrators, and so everything, for instance, that a department chair or a non-certified staff member, like if my administrative assistant was going to put a notice up there, it goes to her. An email goes to her with a notice that she has content she needs to approve. So it filters all through her.
And then it doesn't go on the website until she reviews and approves?
She has to activate it and make it go live.
Okay.
Are we going to pattern the flyout for a Board of Education to the current architecture or arrangement of information for?
That might
or are we
be, I
gonna
know you
enhance-
put a great deal of
Yeah.
thought into that, and she can do that, or if you wanted to talk about that at your retreat,
Yeah, we might.
how did you want to organize that? We have multiple flyouts, so you can go three deep, 4 deep, however you want to do that, is up to you.
Bravo.
Where's the news releases gonna go, like the stuff you see that Bob puts in the paper?
We can do links. We can build some of this white space here. You can do almost anything you want in it. You can put a table. She can embed a table and put live links in there. If you wanted links to the media, you could do that. That's very easy to do. You just have to identify what it is you think is helpful.
I think we should have something where it links to the communication work with. Every time Kevin or yourself put out a press release,
Yeah.
that should go on there.
You could go in the news and announcements right here that there's a new press, or we could have a box
We should
there.
have a historical press release so that people can follow the issues that we've released
Well,
information on.
I think, building on your point, Mike, if you could take that news and announcements and have an archive that people can click onto, would that work? Would you agree, or?
Yeah.
So
But I
Pam,
think you wanna focus on, if we give a press release, separate, because that more than just news and announcements, because this is something important.
Well, you can also tie it into, you could do it 2 ways, John. You could do it this way so that it's the first thing on the page to look at in the news and announcements, but also on the board, and I'm not trying to develop the board website right now, that could be underneath press releases from the board.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So that, here's the tab, like when she's saying flying out, or I don't know what they could call it, but
Yeah.
they hit board, they could have news releases in there. You know what I mean? And even Pam and Kevin's news releases or press releases could come on those too,
That's true.
Right, okay.
Would you ask Alicia to look at what other websites schools do, get some
Yeah.
ideas,
Definitely.
when she gets some of the other stuff done?
Right.
Now, the CSM, they've worked on with other high schools already or not?
Yeah, they're actually, they can do custom websites or a template. This is actually upgraded from the first template we signed up, but they didn't charge us more. So the installation was, under $1,500, which was very reasonable. We had $500 of training that she's got constant phone consultation. Then there's an annual licensing fee of $144. And then you pay them, your basic fee cost is in having them host your site. They have a site where they host yours, and that's like $1,600 a year. So this is very reasonable for this quality. We were looking at some, it was, I think, a lot of companies, it's $20,000 to have to build you a website. So for $4,000 entirely for this, and then basically about $2,000 a year after is really a reasonable amount for I think something that's going to look very professional and be very manipulative and manageable for people.
Now,
So
will the website company help us with, I know that when I've worked with, the companies I've worked with, when we developed a website, the company that provided us, helped us with the website, also developed the walls to make sure that the hackers couldn't get in and,
yeah,
I'm
I
not saying
think-
that
yeah.
students wouldn't do that, but you know what I mean?
We learned of this company through Deb Friedman, our data specialist. She learned about them through an educational conference. There are many schools, Proviso uses this site. There are many schools that have used them for many, many years and not had problems. And we did get them out here. We got a couple of vendors out here to do demonstrations for us. And the technology committee, made up of representatives from many departments and administration, questioned, went through all of that kind of questioning. And then made phone calls to those schools to verify that they were pleased with the product before we decided to go with it.
Okay.
So we're confident that we're gonna, be happy with it.
So after the 4,000, the annual expense should be around 2,000?
Yeah, for
A year?
site hosting and licensing.
And after you get the site up and running, is one person will be able to maintain it?
We're gonna train the department chairs. That's the nice thing about this. It's very
Okay.
easy. I used to put things on and announcements and articles and links. And if I could do it at my old school, anybody can do it, because I'm not super tech savvy. So it's pretty easy to do if
Okay.
you're, used to working with that. So, but she's got to look over the whole
Okay.
site. Watch so that things don't get too old, that
Right.
news is updated, and she's, of course, the filter everything goes through.
Okay.
But our intention is every department will have somebody who's going to manage their own content.
Good.
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
On the news and announcements, is that a link to a expanded?
It will end up, as we add things here, Laura, it's going to have a scroll bar. So you can make it as big as you want, but only the problem with some of these templates that aren't customized is you don't have as much landscape space to manipulate. And so, but it can scroll quite far down. And so you tend to put something, a lot of people just put a line about new article, new press release on this topic, and click more for more. You have the ... click here for more, and you click on it. Then it goes to there is a page for news and announcements where the full article would be. And, it might have a link there to other sources for the article or relevant material. So you could put as much as you want. You could write a ton of text here and put the whole thing you want to say, or you could just say, school closed today, click here for more information,
I think it's one of those things that once it's up and running and as a board, and then once I'm on for 60 or 90 days, as you saw in the email today, we might establish a communication committee, and that's something where we can look at how we can tweak and manage this. In my previous experience, like Tim mentioned, before you know it, the static and the timeliness of the content is the key to an effective web page. People don't want to go to something and see a story that's up there from 10 days or 5 days. So Alicia being able to manage this will be key, and Pam and I monitoring how this was working will be the key. At the previous school I used, we paid a company to serve as our webmaster and web designer, and that was close to $1,200 a month. But stuff was up within 30, 60 seconds after sending it, and it was down 30, 60 seconds after it happened. So I think it's something we can watch and monitor, and as you go forward, and possibly one of those things we talk about at the retreat.
Well, it's also a living, it's a living and breathing site right here. So what you started out with, a year down, 2 years, even 3 years, it's going to be change and evolve coming from that. So
one thing I notice about this is it's clean, uncluttered, and it's intuitive. And one of the tendencies is to people to clutter up their front page with the latest big thing that they want out there. And that doesn't do it. And the most successful ones have the fly-out links and the decision trees that make sense.
Yeah.
I like it. This is really good. And I can't wait to use it. So thank you.
Laura, you have another question?
Yeah, Laura?
I do. I'd like to ask the second question. Will the company also provide you data on how many hits each of the sites within that site get? So that we know if people aren't getting to the tertiary levels of this site, we know we might have to give a design?
Good idea.
You can ask that. I'm not sure. I do have some materials from them, and I'll go back through and see if it says anything about that. They talked a little bit about, in some of their materials when they were trying to get at business, what they have and what are some of the additional services. They have a lot of additional services that cost you more money. So I'll go back through. They have all these optional modules.
Yeah, well, every click is a site. And if we see a lot of clicks with zeros, then that's obviously real estate that we're not utilizing or don't need.
I'll look in what's included in the features and see if they have anything on it, and then we can always ask them a question about that.
That's an additional cost. I think that's worth bringing forward to the board, because we've talked about as a board improving communication And that's a great way to have almost like a free survey out there. If we see people are hitting on primary topics, then we know we need to keep them updated. And
Now, Pam, can we do something else too, is can we link Skyward outside communication with this website together? So that they can talk, you know what I mean?
They
link
won't
URL.
talk to each other.
Okay.
And, you know, I wish they would, you know, but they don't. They're two different systems.
Okay.
But there's still a link there.
There can be a link,
Yeah.
definitely. There'll be a link for parents and for, you know,
Yeah, you'll see the
students for
Skyward.
Skyward, for Naviance, for all kinds of things that they use regularly. For students now have, you know, Google email addresses, there'll be links for that. There'll be, you know, documents that help them if they're not successful in logging on and who to contact. So, you know, it'll continue to get better and I think if we make it a part of some type of surveying or communication, people can give input. I talked a lot at the Patrons Council with members there about what they wanted to see. They were asking for a downloadable calendar, and this doesn't have it, but we're now getting another calendar feature where this will link to that calendar feature, and they're telling us that you can upload it, and you can, you know, it can work with your personal device, your phone, and so forth. So we're hoping that we'll be able to get that feature through the back door. So we're trying to be responsive to what people are saying they really want in order to manage their lives effectively.
Okay.
I have just one last one because it's a programming. Would parents go onto the site, will they be able to have a link to bring them into their Skyward, you know, box so they can log in? Because it might be an easy way for them.
What they would do is what I'm hoping is we'll have a series of icons. And the icon, you click on that and, you know, that icon and it would bring you to your Skyward account.
Okay. Yeah,
Or there'll be multiple ways that you could get it through here when you go to that, or we have it as a drop down, or you go to that page and the link will be there, or we'll have it on the front or on the bottom. Common links that you would go to, and it's nice if you have them in an icon format.
Yeah.
People get used to that.
All right, any other questions for Pam? Good job, Pam.
Thank you. Okay, so, next.
Art, can you hit the lights, please?
Are you gonna need that again, or you're done?
You gonna do more on there, Pam?
You can turn all the lights on now.
Yeah.
We're out of the dark.